Welcome back to the realm. This is your happy place, and today we're going to talk about Nintendo and their need to compete with basically Sony and Microsoft. But before we do get into that, if you haven't already considered subscribing to the channel, it is, we like to talk about Nintendo related content here. So if that's something that you enjoy, then definitely that's something that you should be doing, is subscribing. We also do talk about other video game stuff that's going on. But without further ado, the topic for today is whether or not Nintendo needs to compete with Sony and Microsoft, because they do have the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S coming out. And the very first thing that I really want to talk about is the fact that Nintendo is really in their own lane when they do this sort of stuff. They've always been focused on their sort of programs, their games, and making the best content that they can make for us. And so I don't think that really they need to compete in that regard. I don't think that the necessity of them having a new console just to compete with Sony and Microsoft is really something that we require, because I think that Nintendo has proved over and over again that they basically do what they want to do. They are good at doing what they want to do, and they're good at making their consoles the best that they can, and basically their games is where it's at. I mean, I understand that everyone wants the best console out there, but their games is really what they're focusing on and what they're trying to make better for us. So that's the very first section that I really wanted to focus on. And the next thing is power. Everyone is, there are a lot of people who are obviously Sony fans and Microsoft fans that are concerned about the power of the console and saying that Nintendo's Switch at the present time is underpowered, and that's going to be a big problem for them. But I really don't think that that is going to be an issue, considering that Nintendo is really sort of starting to delve into the 4K era. And I know that there have been rumors out there that have basically suggested that everybody is getting ready for 4K in terms of gaming for the Switch. So I think that whatever we get, the next maybe half step or the Pro system, whatever that's going to be, it's really going to be a much better and upgraded system that we're going to have. And I think that in terms of competition, again, that's not really something that we need to see. That Nintendo doesn't necessarily have to compete with the other people to make the best of the best. They just need to really stay true to what they are, and that is, great game developers. Okay, we have games like Zelda Universe, and yes, I did just start getting into the Zelda games, but they are some remarkable games. And just watching even the gameplay for things like Breath of the Wild, I mean, that game is leagues beyond so many other different games. There are reasons why other companies try and copy them, because, power is not everything, and gameplay realistically is. And that really brings me to the last point, and that's that graphics are not everything. Everybody's basically moving to this point of getting the most realistic looking graphics, and I don't think that we really need to focus on the most realistic looking graphics. I think that Nintendo doing their cel-shaded cartoony style of graphics is still great. It's still commendable. It's playable, it's relatable. You enjoy a Zelda game, you're in a different universe. I don't necessarily need my Zelda games or Mario games to look realistic. I definitely love the fact that even though these games are cel-shaded and they're different in their style, they don't need to be realistic to take you on an adventure, to take you away from real life, which is what I think that every game console and game developer is really trying to do. They're not trying to be as realistic as possible. They're trying to take you away from this real world and give you an adventure and something that's exciting outside of this console, of what's going on in your life. So that is definitely the other thing. And the final thing in terms of competition, I think people are really concerned about is the fact that Nintendo, they focus heavily on games like Mario, Zelda, and even Metroid, which is not really something that's huge for them, and the Mario Party type of games. And to that I say, they don't necessarily need to bring out new games every 5 minutes, new IPs every 5 minutes. They have had some like Splatoon and Xenoblade Chronicles, which they do focus on as well. Realistically, I think that, Nintendo knows what they do best. They do other stuff outside of it, but fans love these games. And let's be honest as well, there are a whole host of other games that are out there. If you're basically going to say, well, the Nintendo Switch is just a Zelda console or it's just a Mario console, and you're going to basically ignore all of the other games that are there, I would really suggest that you take a look. They got Monster Hunter Rise coming out, which absolutely looks amazing. There are a whole host of other games that are second, third party games. They do basically release some. There's a lot of indie games, and yes, indie games I feel like they've definitely thrived on this console, and that isn't a bad thing, by the way. That's quite all right. I definitely think that the Switch has, a lot of different properties and things that people can look to and get used to about it, which is awesome. So look, in terms of having to compete, does Nintendo need to compete? Let's just get that answer out right now, and that is no. I honestly do not believe that Nintendo needs to compete with Sony and Microsoft in order to have the greater or better system. I think that they need to stay in their lane and do what they're doing, which is awesome, because you know, Nintendo has been great for over 30 years plus now, and they've been basically destroying the market for that long. So why do they really need to change? Why do they need to compete? That's the question that I would ask you. Do you really believe that Nintendo needs to compete with Sony or Microsoft? Let me know in that comment section down below. That would be awesome. And again, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and consider hitting the like button as well if you did enjoy this video. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.